What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again finally with another video. And of course I have to do what I do best, and that is a little bit of trade talk with a little bit of some unfortunate news when it comes to your Toronto Maple Leafs roster. Now, if you are new here and you're a Leaf fan like myself, make sure to like and subscribe. You're probably seeing the lack of content lately, but let me tell you, it's been a circus of amount of reasons why I haven't been posting lately, and it's sad. I love doing this, and I'm going to be posting a lot more, and I'm sure you've heard that before, but I definitely am. So make sure to like and subscribe if you like this video. Lots more Leafs-related content coming up, and especially in the rumor and trade variety, because the Leafs are in a little bit of a weird spot. They have some money to play with a little bit here. And it's due to some unfortunate events. As we know, Jake Muzzin is likely going to be out for the remainder of the season. He's going to be reevaluated, I believe, for a spine injury. He's going to be reevaluated in February. Now, the thing is it's all connected, his head, his neck, and, it's a bunch of different things that are starting to catch up to him, you can really tell. So the Leafs have put him on long-term injured reserve, and they're probably going to need to replace him. They're going to need to replace his minutes. They're going to need to replace what he does as a whole. Now, they don't have to necessarily rush in terms of getting a big acquisition, but I do believe that they need to rush in the sense of they need somebody to fill some of those minutes, and we're going to look into that. And I also want to make another video on Alex Kerfoot and his trade value and what he could maybe be the odd man out, why he could be the odd man out. So we're going to look at all those things. But the first thing before we even look at this, I do want to say whether or not Jake Muzzin has still been, on top of his game and been playing like a top 4 guy or even the top 2 guy. When Jake Muzzin was brought into this team originally, the Leafs didn't have that physical presence, that penalty kill guy, that guy that could also play a little bit on the power play with cup experience, that could come in and really give top minutes. The Leafs didn't acquire anybody like that for years. The previous GM didn't get a defenseman that could play the style of game that Jake Muzzin did. And if we've seen the last of him in a Maple Leaf uniform, which I really hope we haven't, he was fantastic for this team for a really long time. And I just want to say thank you to him, because he's been just an absolute beauty for this team. And the physicality and the presence that he brings is something that other players on this team don't have. So Jake Muzzin did his job, and, hopefully he's with his family and healing up right now, because that's what he needs, and that's what I'm hoping that he's doing. So if we're just looking here at the Leafs cap-friendly page, it's showing that they have just under $3 million in cap space. That's slightly accurate, I believe. The reason why I say that is because there are some moves that could, potentially change that with call-ups and people being sent down and such. But the Maple Leafs have had a hot and cold season when it comes to their team, because they've been getting some more depth. And again, the way that this is constructed is not necessarily how the lines are in present day, because Nylander is with Matthews right now, and I believe Bunting is also there. So things are changing quite often, and Robertson is the odd man out at the time I'm recording this, and the blue line keeps getting flipped around. This is by no means what it's going to be long term. And I also have Samsonov in the backup position, but at the time I'm recording this, he is injured. Now, you'll also see Jake Muzzin on LTIR and TJ Brodie on injured reserve. Now, I want to put TJ Brodie here just as a placeholder for now to show you guys kind of what the Leafs blue line would look like if they had everybody. Now, Jordy Ben has come up and done a fantastic job as well. So the Leafs would have a good problem on their blue line. But I would think that Justin Hall could potentially be a guy that gets moved. He just hasn't been that good this season, but you have to bring in a horse on that back end, a guy that can play, 15 to 20 minutes on any given night to replace not only Jake Muzzin, but to potentially replace Justin Hall. Now, the first name that I thought of for a stopgap would be Luke Schenn. The guy is physical as hell. You could probably play him on your bottom pairing. You can play him in that top 4 if you need him every once in a while. But his cap hit is super low. He's on the last year of his deal, and he's actually having a pretty decent start to his season when it comes to offensive ability here. 7 points in 17 games played. He's on pace to, beat some of his previous highs. Now, his career highs came in Toronto, which is hilarious because he was drafted as a Maple Leaf, but he would be a guy that I would bring in because he's cheap and it makes a ton of sense. He's really, really physical. He can fight, and that's something that the Leafs could really use if they don't want to go all in on acquiring a defenseman just yet. But like I said, you're replacing the physicality of a Jake Muzzin, and you're replacing some minutes if you do end up trading a Justin Hall, because I just think it would make a lot of sense. If you did trade Justin Hall, that would open up a spot for a Luke Schenn, and that would also give you the option to have Jordy Ben in there every once in a while, give Giordano a night off, or maybe Rasmus Sandin takes a night off, or maybe you give TJ Brody a night off, just so that way they can stay healthy. So it wouldn't be that big of an issue, I think, but I think trading Justin Hall would make a lot of sense, and the Leafs would actually save money on that move because they would be replacing a $2 million defenseman with a guy that's making less than $1 million, which again would make a ton of sense. Now, I know a lot of Leaf fans are jumping and saying, "Oh, let's get Chychrun." Now, he's very injury prone as well. Like, Chychrun can't stay healthy, and at the time I'm recording this, he's actually still injured. So while Chychrun, when he's healthy, is an absolute dynamite defenseman and he's got term left on that deal, it wouldn't make a ton of sense for the Leafs to go out there and spend huge assets on a guy that, while is offensively gifted and can play really good hockey, is an injury-prone guy. You're just acquiring a younger version of Jake Muzzin. This guy has a laundry list of injuries already. So it's something that the Leafs would probably check in on, but I'm not necessarily sure that it makes a ton of sense for them to go out and, like I said, spend a ton of assets on a guy that is probably going to be injured for most of the season because he can't stay healthy. So I wanted to bring up Luke Schenn because it's a cheaper option. The Canucks aren't really playing that well, and he's a really physical guy that the Leafs could desperately use besides a Ben. And he's a guy that scares people when they go into the corners. Like I said, he's putting up a few points here and there. So I feel like Schenn probably fits the bill in terms of a short-term stopgap here because he just does a lot of things. He checks off a lot of boxes, and you can play him probably in the 15 to 17 or 18 minute range every single night, which is a good sweet spot, especially when TJ Brody comes back. You'll have a really solid guy that can play in that 5 role, that number like 4 or 5-ish role. And then maybe you acquire another defenseman at some point that can play in your top 4, and you start to really have a good problem on that blue line. The Leafs have been scared to go out there and really, really go after a defenseman. I don't think they really have a choice at this point. If you're going to keep losing Jake Muzzin and you have a little bit of money to spend, you should go out and do it. And maybe Kerfoot is a guy that's involved in a deal like that to free up some money because if they do that, they'd probably have just under $6 million to play with. But I wanted to bring up the expensive option and the option that I don't think is so reasonable. I don't think it's that good of an option in Jakob Chychrun, even though I love the player if he was healthy. But and you also got to think of acquisition cost. Luke Schenn, cheaper option, physical, can give you a couple points here and there, would probably be a cheaper acquisition cost by a landslide. He would still cost you, but it would definitely not be on the same wavelength as a Jakob Chychrun. So I wanted to give those couple options, and I wanted to turn it over to you because I want to make more videos on this topic. Who do you guys think are options for the Leafs? Make sure to comment them down below. It could be a defenseman, it could be a forward, it could be a goaltender, it can be anybody. Let me know what you guys think. The Leafs are going to have to make a couple moves here to bolster this team. I know it's early in the season, but you can't just let guys drop like flies here with injuries and expect to be a really good team. And if you slip a little bit, that could be your season. So let me know what you guys think. If you're new here, like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Peace.